couple days back, I put out a video on my TikTok where I was essentially stating that DEI programs do more harm than they do good for the very same people that they purport to be helping. Now, on the surface level and in the short term, they seem to be very helpful, right? You can put people into positions based upon these identity markers, and it seems to create a level playing field. It seems to create a level of fairness within organizations. However, when you start getting into the long game, the same individuals you claim to be helping are now going to have a lower and lower standard. And this has been shown throughout time, even when it comes to, No Child Left Behind laws and things of that nature that were instituted in order to help certain demographics to quote unquote catch up to their counterparts. Instead of incentivizing excellence and instead of essentially rewarding you for what you're doing as opposed to who you are, which is the identity aspects of you. So it might have been, people of color. Now it's categorized more so as, gender or the lack thereof and a multitude of other factors. Obviously, you have disabilities and things of that nature, right? And again, I believe there is a good intention at its core, but the execution of it is unfounded. It's not based in reality. First and foremost, what is it to be equal? If you're to say all humans are equal, I would say we're equal as far as we all deserve the decency and the dignity of being human. We all deserve respect as human beings. But don't get it twisted. You and I are not created the exact same way. If you try to step behind this mic and do what I did, it might not be the same. If I try to step into what you do best, I would probably fail, right? I know where my strengths are. I know where my weaknesses are. And every day that is revealed, it's projected back to me. Unfortunately, we try to fit people into boxes, to squeeze them into places that they may not be suited for or may not be prepared and ready for. And that's the pain point, is to say there are brilliant mathematicians, there are scientists, there are brilliant individuals naturally within these communities that are not going to be pushed to their potential. They're not going to be brought to the highest level that they can be, because instead there's a disincentivizing aspect where it's, well, you're going to get in anyway. So you might be in all C's. Like I remember when I was maybe in 6th grade or something like that, I was getting B's and, maybe a C here or there. And I got an incentive from my pops. He said, if you finish the year on all A's, I think it was like $100 or something, my 8th grade year. I switched the whole game of my 8th grade year because I had that incentive in my mind. I said, man, at the end I'll be making $100. This is crazy. I went in the whole year, not understanding I was working for like 30 cents a day, right? But nevertheless, I ended up getting just about all A's. I ended up getting even awarded for my academics, ended up getting an academic scholarship into a private school, etc. And so because I had an incentive, though it was a financial reward and it was external, it still led to me actually outperforming myself. Now, after that, I just let it all go to waste, right? I wasted a lot of my high school years on the loud pack and such. But, thankfully, I am now in the position that I'm in where I started to think for myself. I started to break away from the groupthink and essentially got my stuff together. But the point being is that if you take away the incentive, which is excellence itself, right? And instead, you're just going to push people through into a system. And I've heard the argument time and time again, that's not what DEI is. DEI is actually creating opportunity for a multitude of different facets. But let's get real. On the premise of it, or the foundation of it, is built upon the identity aspect. So there are people who classify or identify in certain groups that are given preferential treatment, or there are quotas that there must be filled within an organization. This is to say that these people won't get those positions if there's no quotas. And that is deeply offensive to me. There's this program that says 5% of trucking business must come from black businesses. To me, I say, is that how little you believe in our ability as like black trucking businesses? You believe that we can only fulfill that 5%? That you have to force companies to get your business instead of, God forbid, actually saying, okay, we want whoever is best. And if there's 0 black trucking businesses, then we get our game up, or we work in different systems. Or, God forbid, we get a larger percentage than that. When I started my marketing company around 22, maybe 23 years old, and I started getting clients, I had to quickly realize, this is actually one of the greatest teaching points for me to kind of get out of this identity politics mindset. I started seeing that, okay, I'm going to certain people trying to procure their business of anybody, any ethnicity. One of my first clients was my barber at the time, right? And then other barbers wanted to hire me, but unfortunately, I had experiences where, the business aspect wasn't always being treated the same. They were treating it a little too friendly. So when I would try to do content for them, etc., it's like, okay, how can we shave off on the cost here? And, for me as a business, I said, look, I got to survive. I got to be able to actually have enough revenue to even operate as a business. I mean, life expenses, let alone the business expenses themselves or whatever it was, hiring people here, there, etc. So I found myself in a place where, again, I got better and better within my skill set. I did everything I could. Sometimes I would, work for free for this one and build a portfolio so I could show it to other prospective clients. And as I built my little boutique up, what I realized was that I was getting hired off the basis of my results. So they never asked me for my college degree. They did not give a damn. And that's one of these biggest myths. Well, they're qualified because they have a degree. A degree doesn't make you qualified. It may be a qualification, but it doesn't mean that you're actually perfect for this job. You may not even have any experience within that. And experience alone, again, does not necessarily equate to results. That's the thing that many of us, we kind of miss the mark on that one. This isn't just a DEI aspect. It's just life overall is to say, well, I've been in this job for 10 years or 20 years and I've got these degrees. That doesn't mean a damn thing. If I'm trying to hire you for my business, I want to know, what have you done? What outcomes have you done? Like, what outcomes have you gotten? So if I'm trying to, I was working in the digital marketing space, they're asking, what were you able to do for your past clients? Let me see the results. Let me see the growth of their profiles. Let me see the sales that were generated from your campaigns or whatever else it may be. Those are the results they're looking for. And DEI strips that entire, again, self-incentivized, and strips away the need to be excellent. And when you have that for a generation, 2 generations, 3 generations, you now have essentially a pipeline of people who are not only unqualified, but may not even be the right people for that field or that space. It's like the quote unquote education system. There are multitudes of kids who are not supposed to be in school. They're supposed to be working with their hands. They're supposed to be inventing. They're supposed to be entrepreneurs. They're supposed to be doing a multitude of other things. But instead, because we've created this kind of pipeline into universities, we force the university system. We brainwash kids into believing that, this is the only path. And so they find themselves in all this debt, doing things that they're actually not geared for or usually don't even like to do, right? Without any sort of game plan, get out of the system and now feel entitled to, well, I was here and I got my education and I did this, so I deserve X, Y, and Z position. And again, there's the fear that without DEI, nobody will get hired of color. And I say to you that a generation before you and the generation before that, there have been plenty of people of your subsect, whether it's, you're black, you're gay, whatever it may be, that have been getting hired. So we forget that there was a time when there were none of these programs, and yet people were being hired off the basis of what you could do. I mean, even if you looked at politics, the first black senator, I believe, was in 1870 something or 1880. I think it might have been 1870 something. And of course, because the Republican Party was built off the basis of freeing slaves and ending polygamy. So those are their main facets, is to create equality within people. And so they had black senators throughout that entire century, right? Now, they didn't hire him because he was the black guy. And some people say, well, he's just a token. It's like, it's never good enough for these lefties. But instead, this individual was hired off the basis of his qualification. There was excellence there. And so he became the first black senator, and then there became others and others and others, and it continued that way. Now, will it always be a perfect formula? Absolutely not. But the unfortunate part and the other aspect of the DEI situation is when you have a lack of excellence. So you have departments that are simply off of diversity, equity, inclusion, right? These departments are oftentimes detrimental. And this isn't my information. You can go look up the statistical breakdowns of what happens to companies when they integrate and start pouring resources into these parts of the organization. That there is more harm done than there is good, that the programs themselves don't even work to do the thing that they purport to do in the company, which is to create more diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? To create a greater awareness and understanding within the companies. And so you have that part, but you also have the financial part where companies are now losing out on money So then they can not hire at the same capacity that they would before. A lot of companies have had to close down divisions, et cetera. Yes, the economy is where it is, but when you have leakages in your company, when you have waste in the company, then the company can't actually hire people. So there are less jobs. And the first to go is always going to be whatever is draining the most amount of money. All inefficiencies will go. So those who are not the most prepared for those positions because they haven't been incentivized to be the absolute best will go first. One thing I've always known is the person who does not get fired is the person who's the most crucial in a company. And I know there's plenty of people who've been very good at their job, et cetera, worked there forever, who've gotten fired like it was nothing. What I'm saying is, if you're a salesperson at an organization, you're the top salesperson, unless the company shuts down, you will not lose your job. I guarantee it. I've never seen it happen one time my entire life. And I'm a business junkie, or I used to be a business junkie. All I would read was business materials. And I've never seen one case study where there was a top salesperson who was fired off the basis of, we're just letting people go. No, because that person is adding so much value to that company, adding so much to the bottom line that you can't get rid of them, even if you didn't like the person. I've seen people, complete assholes who are unliked or unlikable, whatever, but they're bringing so much money into the company that the company will not get rid of them. And now you have companies in the opposite where it's like, Disney, who will not fire the people who are the DEI hires, right? The Kathleen, whatever her name is, who are ruining entire franchises that made billions. There were cash cows like Star Wars, absolute cash cows. And now they've lost $11 billion in the last, I believe, 2 fiscal years. And here they are. So again, I understand the emotional aspect of it. I understand that we've been sold on this bill of goods that, DEI program is truly looking for the best intention of people. But honestly, a lot of these companies only integrated it because they're afraid of the backlash of not doing so. That's the only reason they did it. And now it's no longer this unpolitically correct thing to just say, you know what, let's do away with the department that's been losing money. If it was any other department, they've been cutting. They've been cutting everywhere. They've been waiting to get rid of all the inefficiencies within their companies. And again, the more people complain, like all that's going to happen is they're going to continue to outsource more and more. Unfortunately, that's what happens. So we really have to learn how to put ourselves in position where we are the absolute best at what we do. And if you are really that, then if you believe the system is so racist and would never accept a black person, blah, 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 like that's your story, then go create something of your own, right? That's the privilege of living in a country like this, is you create your own. There is equity in that space where if your product is dope, then people buy it. If your product sucks, then people won't. As simple as that. Or if your marketing's on point, then people buy it. If your marketing's not on point, then, it's going to be crickets after that. And again, you can only hear this information outside of a victim complex, outside of that, oppressor-oppressed psychology. If you're still stuck in that loop, it's going to be nearly impossible for you to actually understand what I'm saying here. You have to break yourself away from that paradigm in order for you to step into, we always talk about, empowerment. Like true empowerment is to know that you have personal agency. You have control over your own life and that you can affect change within your own life by taking different sets of actions. Simple as that.
I used to be afraid of the dark, a place unknown like a heart in their heart. I used to see my life in the bar. Now the kids unchained, every shackle is lost. 2 steps in the moonlight, 2 step in the daytime. You just know when it feel right. You got a feeling the time's not. See you through those shades that I just threw on. Through my lenses, you just can't do no wrong. I fell in love with myself again. I fell in love with myself. I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again.